All right, back for another episode and a special one at that. Coach Mikey Blazejowski is with us, and a quick story about Coach Mikey that I think is relevant. Um, my first exposure to the strength conditioning field was with Springfield football. Was this 2021, Coach Mikey?
Yeah, it would have been 2022.
Yep.
122.
My first ever exposure to strength conditioning, Coach Griff. 90-hour internship. I go in there. It's Reeser. It's Mikey. It's other GAs. Then it's Coach Fight also in there at times screaming and hollering. And I was like, this is different.
Loaded.
Yeah. It's like a loaded staff that year. Strong GA core that year. But it's kind of a full circle moment for me. So to have you on here is really awesome. And you're going to provide some insight into sports science in a deeper lens than we're used to. And Coach Griff and I think it's, obviously valuable information, and kind of seeing it how you see it, and understanding, what do you think is valuable and what isn't, because we know how important data is in sports science nowadays, and everyone uses it in a different capacity. So picking your brain and seeing, how it's valuable to you and how you apply it, I think is going to be really beneficial for, us and our application of it as well. So I think what we'll start with, man, is just, some hard hitters, a brief introduction of yourself, and what do people that are watching this, what should they know about, Coach Mikey Blazejowski?
Absolutely. So I'm Mikey Blazejowski, part role with the Indianapolis Colts as performance science analyst. So I oversee all our sports science initiatives right now, going into season number 5 with the Colts. So started as a seasonal intern, worked my way up the ladder. Now finally overseeing all our sports science stuff. So in the gap from when I started as an intern there to now, did both strength conditioning and sports science. So had a hand in both as I came up, and now kind of have stepped back a little bit from the strength and conditioning side, going purely all in on the sports science side, but still have some involvement on the weight room side of things. So now I float around instead of having groups when we're lifting, if we're not doing it, instead of testing or monitoring with guys. Got both my degrees from Springfield College. So I got my undergrad degree and graduate degree from Springfield. During that time there, completed multitude of internships at the Division I level at multiple football programs. And it's kind of like where I fell in love with sports science. So just kind of going through that process and seeing like a lot of these teams were using Catapult, and that kind of what was always caught my interest a little bit, because I remember growing up, I was in high school. My dad was showing me an article in Sports Illustrated. I think it was about like Clemson football using Catapult at the time and it being like innovative and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I want to do, just kind of as an analytical person who has an analytical mind, who loves numbers and stuff like that, and just kind of likes deep thinking and being able to solve problems or think critically. So that's kind of where I fell in love with it too. And then just kind of going through the field, like sports science was still young when I was young in the field, going through my internship. So kind of seeing like carving out a role in that path where like not a lot of people knew how to, like, I'd say, do it yet, from the internships in places I saw of like, all right, at this level, like it's very, very young. So I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity for me, like, to carve out a career with that. So it's kind of how I ended up where I am now. And even at Springfield, when I was a GA, kind of starting GPS and player tracking at Springfield. So kind of tying my thesis into being able to get us at Springfield, get some sort of GPS unit. I mean, with us being one of the top programs in the nation, a lot of our GAs go off, get bigger jobs, and that's the first time they're getting exposed to GPS. So that's kind of was one of my things that I'm proud of that I left at Springfield, is kind of just getting that ball rolling and getting the, I guess, sports science initiative now. And now I'm a little, not mad, but a little upset at MK and Dr. Fight for finally getting a sports science PhD and master's. So, but it was good. And I enjoyed my time at Springfield, working with the football program, women's lacrosse, track and field. So it was a good time. And I think definitely being at Springfield, and as you guys can experience and attest to it as former GAs, like, it's a one-of-a-kind experience when you're there as a GA. Like, you're the head strength coach of the teams you're assigned to. You're getting basically like multiple years of experience, because each team is basically its own unique entity. So it's like, all right, I'm working with 4 different teams. That's basically like 4 different years of experience and 4 different real-world problems and solutions I have. And that's one thing I just am very thankful for, from going to Springfield and going through that GA process, and just working with all the sport coaches I worked there, strength coaches I worked along, working with Dr. T, Dr. MK, and Dr. Fight too. It's just like, you get so exposed to real world problems while you're in grad school, still trying to figure it out. And you have that opportunity to fail, but you're also gaining that experience. Because like when you go and have to interview for jobs or get into that first position after grad school, you've had experience solving some of these problems that already came up when you were a GA and young enough to fail at them and get a lesson from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was the legacy of Mikey Blazejowski at Springfield with the passing down of all the dashboards and stuff. Like,
yes, literally. Dude.
I mean, we were just like remaking them, and you trace it back. It's like, yeah, Mikey started all this. So that was cool.
God you did, or else, oh my God,
we would have been really lost. But yeah, I think first place I want to start this conversation is kind of a little bit more on the broad scale, and then it'll kind of take us wherever it does. Just diving into like your process. So what that kind of looks like. So how do you go from taking all this data that you're collecting, and then how do you kind of sift through, determine what's valuable, what's invaluable, and go about making actionable decisions? Because there's so much data that you can collect anymore, right? Like it's so easy to get caught up in all the noise, but how do you sift through it all and really make educated decisions with that?
Yeah, and I think the first big thing is like kind of the big framework. And Mark Lewis and Adam Virgil wrote a book, Sports Science Essentials, or I can't remember the exact title of it, but it's like a sports science handbook. And they do a really good job of explaining sports science as a broad, but then diving down into how to like sift through all this data. So they do a really good job of explaining that. And some of that principles that I took from that book are kind of what shaped a little bit of my philosophy too. It's like, so the first thing I think you got to start with is, all right, we get all this data, we get all the technology in the world, and especially at the highest level, you have an abundance amount of resources to go get whatever tech you may want. But I think the biggest thing is people get caught up with, all right, let's get all this data first. We don't really know what they're looking at. So kind of, you got to think of a problem first that you're trying to solve and why you need to collect this data. So like, the big question I always ask them before we start some sort of like testing is, or introducing a new protocol is, all right, how is this testing data? How is this going to affect decision making? What decisions am I going to be able to make once I get this data running through our systems? And then from there, it branches out. I go, is it actionable? Is it easy? Is it easily collected? And then is it connectable? Can I connect it to another data source that we already have to get a better picture of everything's going on? And I think what the biggest thing is, like at our level, time is limited. Football's the number one priority at all times. Is with it being easily collectible, how can I introduce this into training that it's not going to take away time from an athlete's day-to-day routine and make it as easy on them to get a valuable data point, whether it's us force plating inside the lift or doing our Nord board, force frame testing inside the lift. Like it's part of their training. So that way they know exactly when it's going to be, and we're not going to have to take time out of their day to do it. It's part of that hour or so that they may have with us during the day. So then that covers, is it easily collected? Is it actionable? Can I make data decisions off that down the road, or even instant, maybe a year from now, whenever it may be? But like, if I can't make a decision off it and I'm just sitting there and it's collecting dust, and maybe it's good for me, but it's not going to be beneficial for the athlete because I can't make a decision off them to help them either be better from a performance standpoint, be fresher, or reduce risk of injury. And then is it connectable? Because like, all right, if I'm getting a player tracking source from my GPS metrics, am I getting a force plate? Am I getting some tissue tolerance testing, as I like to call it, with our Nord boards and force rings and stuff? Like, can I tie this all in together to get a picture of the athlete, of what's going on, what needs to come from that? And I mean, like, again, like there's so many data sources, new technologies coming out, technology companies competing against each other where they're saying like, all right, this one, we got this company doesn't have this, and this, but it's like, how much of that is bullshit? And it's for you to do your research, and also what fits your situation too. Because it's like, all right, if I'm trying to go get a technology, but it doesn't, I want it, the data's good, but it doesn't fit into my situation, and it's just going to sit there and collect dust, that does no good. Or if it's like, all right, I got to go chase the newest tech, but the version that was, or another company or version was like, is better and it's easier to use. Like, there's so many like things that you got to think about when going through it, picking technology, protocols, and everything.
Like, how much is too much? I know that's something that I deal with. I think we deal with because, like you said, it's all the tech's easily accessible at, levels that we're at. And it's like, what do you value? Kind of where I want to go from that is like, obviously you guys have a high performing model. How do you, one, communicate the importance of certain metrics, whatever those may be, with the strength staff? Then what is the involvement with the actual sport coaches as well?
Yep. So kind of any involvement with the sport coaches goes through our director, Mike Minnis. So like if anything pops up, communicating with him, he deems does this need to be moved up the chain, and then go from there. But I guess like in terms of like the strength coaches and sports medicine, I feel like my job is to take the objective measures we have, give insight into what those objective measures are saying, and give a recommendation prescription. Because it's not my job to go in and be like, hey, this athlete jumped, he's fatigued, we need to do this, and this. And when there's kind of how, especially for our structure in the weight room. So it's like we have our strength coaches, and how we have to set up is each of us are in charge of each of us are in charge of like a positional group. So back when I was doing strength condition, I had the mid, so tight ends, running backs, linebackers. And then, so it's basically split up. Like you get a guy doing quarterbacks and specialists, you get a guy doing the mids, you get a guy doing the skills, you get a guy doing the line. And then you get our director, Mike, he floats in the weight room, kind of just making sure everything's rolling smooth, but it's communicating to them, all right, hey, here's what I'm seeing from the data, but I don't want to like overstep and be like, no, you got to be doing this, and like almost like ruling with an iron fist. But like my job is to communicate the data in an objective way and give recommendations. And then at that point, it's like, all right, they may see something different, or they may be getting feedback from the athlete that doesn't completely align with the data. And that's another big thing and big key is like, you need to have context with all this data too, because if you don't have context, like it can be thrown out the window. And that's why like, it's the context is kind of the biggest portion, because I can give you guys a data set of be like, all right, hey, sift through this and tell me what you find. Well, Griff may find one thing, you may find another thing, Caden, but I was the one actually collecting the data, and I have all the context in the world, and I could be like, all right, hey, this athlete, he's showing fatigue on the force plate. Well, he just did all six sets of his squats before he came and jumped on the force plate. Or it'd be like, all right, you may flag someone and it's be like, all right, hey, he may be fine from an objective standpoint, but subjectively talking to him and just that 30-second conversation of him by the force plates, it's be like, all right, hey, no, he's feeling fatigued, like his legs are heavy, he didn't sleep good last night. So it's like, that's that context that you need to add to the data, where it's like, you just can't get caught up and be a number junkie at that point too.
Mm-hmm.
And even too, just like I said, communicating too across the board to like sports medicine in terms of like return to play standpoint of like, we get a guys coming back from injury and they're doing field work, just saying like, all right, hey, here's where his normal workload's at. Here's where he currently stands. Like, I think he needs more of X, Y, and Z based off his positional demands or what he needs. Like, all right, hey, you guys have done a lot of great high speed work, but his A cells and D cells are lacking. Let's try to go attack this on the next field day. Or even just like, all right, you get a guy coming back, we're doing some sort of strength testing with him, be like, all right, hey, he's at 80% baseline strength right now with what we have on him. Or like, hey, like he's in a good enough spot where it's like strength's not an issue now. Like we can start transitioning to some sort of like speed power training in the weight room in terms of his return to play stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
What metrics or group metrics matter to you? Like what are the big rocks for you? Like how do you and your staff decipher which metrics are a priority, and you're going to utilize those to assist in the creation of certain protocols?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is whatever, like, don't get caught up in metrics. And I think I said, like, you want to get caught up in the principles behind it and solving the problems on what metrics you are. So it's like, what metrics work for me in football may not work for you in baseball, Kate, and it may not work for you in track and field, Griff. Like that's just the nature of sports science. Like you got to, again, like I said, find the problem, figure out what you're trying to solve, and then find the metrics or data protocol, whatever that may be. When I'm looking at the big rocks of metric, kind of how we look at is kind of break it up into, I guess, 4 groupings. So your strength and power testing, tissue tolerance, movement, and then injury risk and fatigue are kind of how we look at it in terms of like, all right, whatever we're testing, we want to make sure we're monitoring these categories, how our testing relates to these categories in terms of, all right, hey, like what are those tissues doing? How are they responding to our training? Are they responding to our training in terms of pure output and strength and power? Movement, obviously, how are they moving as an athlete? Or they having some sort of compensation pattern, or are they locked up in a certain joint, or are they moving well enough? And then fatigue and injury risk. Because I mean, that's the biggest thing for us with kind of how our structure is set up, where like football is always the priority. Like I don't know how it is in the baseball cadence, but like for us, we pretty much only have like 2 weeks of the year that football is not a priority, that we can actually train these guys. And that's when they get back for OTAs. And even then it's optional. So it's like they don't have to be there. And then we roll into phase 2. Then it's like, all right, they're on the field with the coaches. Then it slowly moves on. And then they go back home for 6 weeks before the most important time of the year when we roll into training camp. And then they show up, report, and the following day, we're practicing.
That's like literally the D3 model though. So like you're with Division 3 is an advantage in that sense. Like Division 1 coaches get the benefit of having their guys all summer, and then they roll right into fall camp. So they get to kind of ride that slow build into fall camp.
We offer off-season camps. We also have guys that either decline or don't get offered that camp, and they have a significant time away from the facility, and they come in and you're just hitting it for a certain amount of time, So like it's just the nature of it. And you don't have any objective data on them from the period of the off season. So it's like how can you compare from literally 4 or 5 months before and where they're at now?
For sure. And then even too, like I was just getting back to my point because I got my train of thought, but like with that, you guys, like we get them back, and football is always a priority. And like I talked about in that major bucket of like injury risk and fatigue being kind of a big one, and everything we do kind of tying back to that, because with football being the priority, we want to make sure these guys are available and as close to 100% as possible. So it's like with our tracking, like we need to make sure we have some sort of baseline of how ready this guy is objectively, and make sure we're reducing risk of injury. Because I mean, again, in pro sports, you got money and contracts tied to these guys. So it's like if your top dog's not on the field and you're paying them a massive amount of money, like it's going to hurt the organization. Like you're not getting production, you're getting production, you're paying for that. So it's like, obviously you want to make sure those guys are available for all 17 games on Sunday. And even too, like going back to like what we were just mentioning, like about an advantage of the D3 level, like that's like, it's the normal, like it's the same thing. Like we experience as Division 3 athletes, and we experience as Division 3 GAs, like guys are away for winter break, they come back. And even during the summer, like that's the biggest period away. All your athletes are gone. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they're following the program you gave them. And it's like, even for us, it's like we can give them good training when they're with us, but then when they go away for the summer, it's like we have to kind of write a basic program that they can do at pretty much at any gym. And obviously a lot of guys have certain guys they go out and work with, but it's like sometimes like they don't have just one guy they're working with. They're like, oh, I'm going to spend a week in Arizona with this guy. I'm going to go down to Florida and spend a week with this guy. I'm going to go spend 2 weeks in Texas, and I'll be back with you guys for a week, like right before training camp to check in. So it's like you have kind of like, yeah, hopefully they're working. I mean, some guys go back to their same guys that are consistent and come back in good shape and ready to roll. And like, all right, you almost give credit to those guys and credit to the guys they're working with. 'Cause it's like almost like a thank you to those guys. Like, all right, you helped us as an organization. You helped us from a performance staff you prepared one of our guys for ready to go for camp. So it's like, I think that's a huge aspect of it.
Yeah. So sorry, Kane, I'm going to go here.
Yeah.
So you talk about, especially for the injury and fatigue aspect of things, you have all this objective data. How much weight are you putting into like what the guys are telling you? So more of the subjective piece of things.
I think that's huge, because I think that's your biggest data point. I mean, if you get guys to fill out a subjective wellness questionnaire, but like if I'm a guy that's just pressing 3 as I'm walking through the cafeteria in the morning, I think that's not going to give me anything. But that, hey, like when we're doing our jump testing once a week, that 30-second conversation I may have with a guy while I'm waiting to get his name in the force plate, or even after he's done his 3 jumps, like that's huge information. Like those are the ones that stick more than some sort of, I guess, statistical analysis or some sort of like just red flag on a dashboard. Like I said before, like context is huge. Like a guy's fatigued, and the guy can come back on the force plate. I'm talking, hey, how you doing, man? And he's like, oh, there are 2 kids that can't sleep at home right now, so I'm up all night. Or it's like I haven't slept like crap. Or it's like I'm just having a tough time sleeping. Or it's like, hey, I'm still feeling beat up from Sunday, and it's Wednesday at this point. Like my legs are heavy. So then it's like that whole weight of like, all right, how can we help this guy? Whether it's we're pushing him towards more recovery, trying to modify him in the weight room, trying to modify him from a practice standpoint if we can, or just alerting coaches being like, hey, like chill out with so-and-so today. Like he's feeling it. We got some data that shows it, but it's like, that's the good thing too about like when the subjective matches the objective, like you can't disagree with it.
Yeah.
And that gives you more power.
Yeah.
So what actual devices are you guys using on a day-to-day basis? I assume you have, GPS, force plate, VBT, anything
So
else?
VBT, we use GymAware, Hawken for our force plate company. We use balls and boards, force frame. We use the True Strength from Hawken. Zebra for our player tracking system. So
You guys have
what?
you guys have 1080?
We do not have 1080. That is one technology we do not have. And then we use Dari for our movement screen for guys.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's like the league has done a lot of research with it. So we're able to get a system through them. So we do it. We have a protocol that we utilize at our his name's Sam Kim. He's a strength and conditioning / performance therapist on staff. He came up with it. So he does a lot of work in that space with us in terms of getting guys to do a movement screen, figuring out what's wrong with them from a movement standpoint, and then giving them some sort of corrective.
That's dope.
It's awesome.
What's the buy-in level with the guys that you're working with? Like, are you guys taking the time, even if it's personal and one-on-one, to like educate these guys enough where you're trying to drive buy-in with the use of different piece of technology? Just because from my experience, you have guys that are bought in and they enjoy it. And then you have guys that understand that the sport is completely different and kind of, the outputs or the results that they're seeing on the plate or whatever it is don't necessarily influence, how well they're going to go perform out there. So it's like you kind of see both. And I was curious, like where you're at, what the buy-in level is.
Absolutely. And I think, so we do have pretty good buy-in with our tests. And I think a little bit of that is guys realize that anything we do is going to be there to help them. So it's like, we're not just sitting on the data, anything, because that's the biggest thing is like, when I'm collecting data, when I'm coming up with the protocol and what we're going to test, it's like, I want to make sure what we're going to do has some sort of action behind it. So it's like, all right, within the system, all right, this guy tests, he's either flagged, not flagged, where's he flagging, what's our intervention based off that. And when they can see that and they can also see improvements or see it, like, all right, hey, like this isn't a waste of my time. Like this is actually helping me either be a better athlete, help me come back from injury so that way I can have some sort of objective comparison of where I was at before my injury to where I'm at now. And even too, just like the biggest thing is like buy-in comes from relationships with them. So it's like, I think one of the biggest things I value is creating relationships with the athletes, because that's going to help me as a practitioner, but buy in, but it's also going to help them because it's like, now I know that athlete. And when it's like certain things pop up, it's like, all right, we have that relationship. We have that rapport. I can understand better on why this is going on. It's going to get them where it's like, I could be like I said before, like I had skin in the game in the weight room, like the last couple of years where it's like, I got my own groups, building relationships with these guys, actually coaching them on the floor and stuff like that. And where it's now, it's like when we're not testing, I'm still on the floor, helping guys out, helping whatever may need, building relationships with them. It's like you can just be a sports scientist and sit behind your desk and just crunch a bunch of numbers and then go stand at a set of plates, stand at a force frame, stand at an org board and just collect data. You don't have any personal relationship with that guy. That guy may not give intent. That guy may not even be like, yeah, screw that. Mikey, who's this Mikey guy? Like, I'm not going to go over there and test with them. So it's like, then your numbers are going to drop off in terms of compliance. So it's like, I think the biggest thing is like having that personal relationship with the athlete and having it be beneficial to both is going to ultimately help create that buy-in to be able to, again, get intent on testing, get better results, and even just get better analysis with that subjectivity to the objectivity.
Yeah.
So I guess how does this process kind of shift for someone who's new coming in for you? Like, so say a rookie, free agent, so like as you're gathering data, like let's say you have a third year player, like you by this point, data wise, you have a really good idea of who that guy is.
Yeah.
You've built a really good relationship with him. You know, early on in the process for a newcomer to the Colts, it's like, okay, do I really have a clear picture of who this guy is? Like, what is his true baseline? So I feel like in the beginning, like it could probably be harder to make decisions, right? Because you really don't know this guy yet. So
absolutely,
what does that look like?
And that's the biggest thing. It's like when you get a free agent and rookie, like I think it's depending on when you sign the free agent, but the rookies are a little bit easier because then when we go to like when we're in our off-season program and we get the rookies with us, they have a dedicated lift time for the first couple of weeks. So it's like you start to learn them, you start to get your baseline tests and start to figure them out, ask questions about this. And then even for me, it's like you network in this field, and it's like you shouldn't be afraid to share, I guess, data with someone about either athlete you had. So it's like, all right, if I know sports scientist or one of the strength coaches at the place, we get drafted a guy, and me be like, all right, hey, what can you tell me about this guy from a data standpoint? How is he? Or hey, like even just as simple as, hey, going into set rookie top speeds, what's his top speeds? That way we're getting accurate high speed numbers where I'm not just going basing, all right, he's probably a 20-mile-an-hour guy. Like, all right, hey, sit that at, and then we're like, oh shit, this guy's got a X amount of high speed running already. And it's like, all right, well, his speed may be too low. It's like, are we going to make a decision off that or no?
Yeah.
So you get a pretty good feel for them for like free agencies. Like if a guy's signed in the off season and we get into the off season program, again, same thing, maybe reach out to a strength coach I know in another team or sports scientist, kind of get some sort of picture on this guy, figure out who he is, build a relationship with him. They'll go through our baseline testing, and it's like, all right, hey, we signed a guy, he has a history of hamstring issues. All right, hey, he's flagging weak in asymmetry. So it's like, boom, now we're going to put him on some sort of hamstring protocol that we have to make sure guys are rolling with that. So it's just like, again, like I keep building a relationship. And then sometimes it's just hard because you may get a guy in for like 2 weeks. So it's like you may sign a practice squad guy mid-season. He might be there for 2 weeks. So it's like you can't even really do anything, or even you may just need a camp body. So you're going to go sign someone middle of training camp because you had a couple injuries. Then the guy's in, next thing you know, the guy's gone a week or so later. So it's like you may not even get time to test the guy because like football is the main, at that point, football is the main priority and trying to figure out time without, again, like I said, getting good data. Because if I'm like, all right, hey, come in after practice and do this for me. Well, it's like you're fatigued for practice. I'm not going to get a good baseline on you. Or it may be like at the end of the week, and it'd be like, if it's like a practice squad guy, and it's like, all right, he just went through 3 days of practice and he's running his nuts off. So it's like, now I may not even get good data there. So it may be just like figuring out, but the data may be somewhat helpful. So it's just kind of figuring out when to do it. And even if it is like beneficial to do it. Yeah. And again, sometimes it's just like, you just got to put your eggs in the basket of like, all right, hey, we may not get this. We're going to try to get as much as we can on this guy. And at minimum, we'll get a weekly force plate on him and kind of roll from there.
Kind of piggybacking off that, and I don't know if you can share, but if you can, what is your guys' assessment process? So like when all the guys get back from the offseason or they just sign, what are the tests that you're running through, and why are those the ones that you guys chose?
So I won't get into like specifics, but like when we get guys back, it depends on the time of the year. So it's like sometimes for training camp, we may not test guys the first day they report. Again, like we want to make this easy on the guys and not just do one big day of testing. So it's from that point and figuring out the time of the year, phasing out, all right, what day are we going to do what test? Are we going to do our leg strength testing here? Obviously, force plate's already working to the lift. When are we going to do our upper body strength testing? So it's figuring that out and when the best time is and just kind of phasing out in sort of the lift. So it may take us like the first 2 weeks to get baseline on some guys just because it's like, all right, hey, this is how we have it phased out. And once we get everything, then it's enough for us to start making change in phase two of the offseason programs where it's like I said, like we did the 2 weeks we have with these guys before football takes over. It's like, again, we talk about it like Division III level. You don't really know what guys truly did. Like when even the offseason, like before they get to us for OTAs, like the winter, it's like that's the longest time they're away from us, and it's like some guys may not even have touched a weight, and now you got to build back up the work capacity with these guys. So it's like that's kind of when we kind of do our major baseline of testing and just kind of phasing it out, depending on the time of year.
Coach, you got something or?
No, go ahead. Yeah,
I want to shift
yeah.
to VBT and velocity zones. I think Coach Griff and I think over our last few podcasts, honestly, but just me recently, I've had a lot of conversation around this. I want to just hear your general thoughts on, I think we can all agree that VBT is useful.
Mhm.
And we can understand that each end of the spectrum is going to elicit a specific adaptation. But some people, including myself, like I think the middle is somewhat of a gray area at times. So like when you look at the way the velocity zones are broken up, like if you have someone that's working between 0.8 and 0.95, that could be considered a power zone. And as soon as I go over 0.95 to 0.96, it's a totally different adaptation. I'm just not sold on that. And I was kind of curious, you as a sports scientist, your thoughts on, on that.
I mean, I think you got to look at the data too. So it's like, all right, if we're, again, I think part of being sports science is there that data science behind it too, and just having a base understanding of statistical analysis of like, all right, say we are training that X zone, what adaptation is this guy? And then, all right, what adaptations did we see from that? And I think that maybe tying it back to like a counter movement jump, all right, in terms of its lower body strength, lower body power, like are they going up? Or it's like, hey, like we're doing some sort of upper body testing, we're training upper body in these zones. Like, does that have some sort of effect? I mean, I think the biggest thing with VBT is just like the objective feedback to drive intent, but also to account for daily fatigue, day-to-day fatigue. Because it's like one day I can feel like absolutely great, and my max strength is 10% better than what my baseline is, and then the following day I may be down in the dumps. So it's like that's where it's like I'd say it's like you don't really get caught up in zones. It's like using percentages more or less. I would say it's like, are you going for more speed? Set the higher velocity. If you're going for more strength, set it at a lower velocity on whatever, again, adaptation you're chasing. And again, I think the biggest thing is just like using it to guide you while you're training and finding out like, all right, hey, like maybe staying in the same zone, but again, I'm in the dumps. So, hey, I'm going to be down weight, but I know I'm still getting some sort of adaptation where I'm not just following some sort of like linear progression of like, hey, let's add 5 pounds. All right, hey, add 5 pounds again. So it's like, I think too, so it's like, again, like analyze the data that you're seeing. So it's like, all right, you may have a group training at this group at this zone. You may have a group training at this zone. All right, hey, say it's lower body. Have that like a pre and post tested force plate. So it's like, hey, over that time frame, training at those zones, what happened? So it's like you got to have some sort of measure to see like, all right, hey, like, is this actually working? Is this actually driving the adaptation? Because I mean, like you have a good understanding, but you'll truly never know because of the complex organism of a human being. What you're going to adapt to, Griff, versus what Caden's going to adapt to, versus what I'm going to adapt to is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
And even too,
we know Caden doesn't respond well to heavy back squats.
Very evident.
He's been trying to get stronger for years and it hasn't worked.
But building off that, Coach Mikey, it's like if you're not testing, you're guessing,
Yeah.
And that's, using obviously the auto regulatory benefits of VBT are awesome, but like once again, you can expect a certain zone to elicit a certain adaptation, but you'll never actually know unless you test.
For sure. And I mean, again, like I go back and forth sometimes, like with this, it's like, all right, we're driving adaptation, but does that adaptation actually make them good at their sport? Or is it like, because I've seen guys who are absolute weight room freaks be absolute shit on the football field. And I've seen guys who are like absolutely maybe like just hate lifting weights and go out and have a PhD in their sport and absolutely ball out. And they're still, they may not be the fastest, but it's like they're producing. So it's like at that point, it's like we can dive down all these rabbit holes too at some point, but it's like, are the results on the field occurring?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have all these data pieces from all these different sources. You have the force plates and the VBT. You talked about how you're kind of like marrying those up, looking at those to see if the adaptation is what you think it might be. How do you make sure that you're not missing something for each player? So, taking into account all the data that you have, because you have so many different ways of collecting.
I mean, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, Griff. Like, I haven't really thought about that. Like, are we truly missing something? Because it's like, again, I go back to in terms of our data collection, what problems are we trying to solve? Like, is there a problem is there a problem I'm trying to search for that's actually not there, and I'm going to dive down a rabbit hole and may make a situation occur that doesn't need to occur? Where it's like, all right, you look back and all right, take 100-foot view or whatever. Let's say 100,000-foot view it is, and look at it, and it's like, all right, do we have any problems we're trying to solve? Or it may be like, all right, do we have a soft tissue problem? All right, well, let's see. We are doing some sort of testing. We have interventions for when a guy flags. So it's like, can we improve our interventions and diving down the rabbit hole there? Or it's like, it just is what it is. It's the sport. Like, there's some things we can't prevent. There's some things we may not miss. And it's like, I think, again, like, if you get paralysis by analysis, if you think you're always missing something and always looking for the next best thing, you're actually going to miss what's right in front of you in terms of the data you are collecting.
Do you guys utilize data to bucket guys? And Griff, we had a conversation about this in one of our most recent podcasts, and you kind of, I think, opened my eyes to, I think I'm bucketing too much. And recently, my mindset has shifted on that, and I think buckets can be valuable, and I think they can be beneficial for navigating, a big group of athletes. But I think they also have to be flexible. And I didn't know if you guys utilized, the data you're collecting to bucket guys a certain way, whether that be, wide, narrow, force bias, velocity bias, elastic, whatever it may be. Like, honestly, I'm just curious to see how other organizations like utilize that data to make, to drive decisions.
So I wouldn't say we really bucket guys in terms of just like performance outputs, in terms of like, all right, hey, like, just, all right, how this guy moves, what type of like outputs he's getting in terms of BBT, whether it be a Kaiser power squat, what he's doing on the force plate. All right, this guy's a force guy, this guy's a velocity guy, this guy's a combo guy, where it's like, and even that, like, you look at football, it's like such a unique sport where, like, you already know, like, your big guys are going to be force guys, your skill guys are going to be elastic speed guys, your mids are going to be like somewhere in between there. Some are going to lean towards more strength, some are going to lean more towards speed. But
elastic lineman, coach, like a super narrow lineman.
But I think the biggest thing we bucket for injury risk and fatigue. Like I said before, that's kind of like the main driving force for us, where it's like, all right, these guys fatigue or not. All right, hey, boom, we're going to push them towards the massage list or whatever it may be for recovering modality. Or it's like, all right, hey, based off this testing, we're deeming this athlete's at increased risk for a tissue strain. All right, hey, here's the intervention we're going to try to change, but he may not even change. Like, we may get better, but he still may be at risk. It's like, he's either A, not responding, so we got to change the intervention. B, that's just who he is. And he's a soft tissue guy. He's always going to have some sort of soft tissue injury risk. So it's like I said before, like, you want to keep these guys healthy and fresh, with football always being kind of the main driver. Keep them healthy and fresh, and then reduce their risk of injury on the field. Because, like, again, like, they always complain about it, and I'm going to say it, but I mean, they are assets. Like, again, like, you got to protect them. Like, you want to make sure they're healthy and fresh to be able to go perform. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone in the organization's one common goal, and that's to win and perform. Like, and that's professional sports. You win or you're out.
Don't you try to take care of your own investments, whatever they may be? It's the same thing. You know what I mean? And it does make our job, I think it provides or creates complications within our job, just the way we approach it. It's just the nature of the level we're at. Coach, did you have something to go off?
You go.
This is a little off topic, but I'm just kind of curious. I'm curious about the flow of your guys' day. So, like, are the guys coming in and training in the mornings and then collecting data in the mornings, or are they doing it after practice? Does it depend on the group, like the skill guys? Like, how does the flow work on a day-to-day basis?
So generally, pretty much every time we're lifting before we're doing something on the field. So, like, whether that's in the morning or afternoon, just depending on the time of the year, like, that's when we're getting the data before they even touch the field. for the day. And that's mostly, I mean, we used to have open hours back in the past, but now we get a hard start time for everyone. So it's like it's good because you know that there's going to be consistency in the data where it's like, all right, Griff's coming in to lift at 10 a.m. one week, and we have open hours, and the next week he's in at 1 p.m. and they're like, whoa, Griff just shot up on his force plate. I'm like, probably not. He's probably just more ready and more awake. Whereas now it's like there's consistency in that.
Yeah. I had a question I wanted to ask you about. I think that there's a common ground with a lot of the things we're looking at within data and sports science across the industry as a whole, no matter the sector, right? In GPS data to, accumulate volume and understand where they're at acutely, chronically. We have the force plate testing that we can, identify potentiation. We can use the fatigue monitor. We can identify the curve and the actual movement that's going on. There's so many things you can do with that. We have the 1080. There's all these different metrics. Do you think there's any other just sports science considerations in general that are overlooked that aren't highlighted by the field that you value or use yourself?
So I think the big one, and it's very controversial right now in terms of, I think, sports science and sports performance. So I'd be interested to hear your guys' take on it, is the use of AI, because AI is not going away and AI is going to be here to stay. And you get people I wouldn't say anti-AI, but they're like, oh, it's AI is pushing out a bunch of slop. Like it's doing this, this, and this. We're taking away the lack of thinking from humans. Then you got a camp all right, well, let's utilize AI, figure out how to use it, figure out how to train it to benefit us, and figure out how I can, sometimes maybe cut time in my day that I can put more bandwidth to other things. But also too, I can't remember who said it, but the big thing with AI is again, for us as performance coaches and even me, getting my start in the field was in strength and conditioning before going into sports science and on the floor coaching and being face to face with humans. If I can utilize AI to cut down on some of my stuff that I'm sitting behind a desk, and I can go out and talk to athletes or be able to create relationships or even go on the floor and coach, because that's why we got into this, is to help and serve and coach these athletes. So it's if I can utilize a tool that's out there and maximize the benefits of it to be able to have more face-to-face time with my athletes, I think that's huge. And again, there's a lot of camp going on, or a lot of talk about it, about people are anti-AI. Some people are all right doing it, where it's people are building full AMSs, and it's all right, well, it's, other people are oh, you're just putting out a bunch of AI slop on social media, we're getting lazy. But it's I think if you utilize it in the proper way, but also not abuse it, I think use it and not abuse it, where it's can it help me do some tasks? Absolutely. I was in the process of building kind of my own AI sports science assistant of all right, hey, you're going to look at and obviously there's some data privacy stuff into it. So I had to build a local model on my computer because I don't want to put it in some sort of cloud source. But it's all right, hey, I'm going to train you how I look at the practice data too, but also leave the creativity of AI that it may have, or have that mind of its own too. It's here's the base rules when I'm going through practice data. I'm going to feed it to you too, and I'm going to go look at it. So it may be all right, hey, I'm going to go through practice data myself, pick out guys who I'm flagging based off how my workflow and system is. But then I may go over, all right, hey, what did they pick out? All right, cross-reference. All right, hey, cool, we picked out the same guys. And it'd be all right, hey, maybe it picked out some guy that I didn't think was flagged. So now I'll go cross-reference that and be all right, hey, this is a bunch of bullshit, or hey, this is a signal that I may have missed. So it's again, I'm not taking that aspect out of it. I'm using it, that human aspect out of it, where I could be, you could get lazy and be all right, hey, here's the guys that's flagged. And it's all right, well, we got 15 guys. And it's all right, the guys, if I would have just done it myself, I got 2 guys. So it's you got to obviously check the work of it a little bit, because that's the biggest thing, because it can be wrong at times, but it's a useful tool if I think used right and trained right. I would be interested to see what you guys are thoughts on AI in the performance space.
Coach Griff, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Why?
I don't know. It's not something we've ever spoke about. And
It's not.
To me, you're a very old school coach. I don't even know what that means, but that's
Pen and paper, stopwatch.
like you're
You just say that because I'm not super involved on social media.
Coach.
That's my idol. No, I think, Mikey, fascinating point right there. And I've given some thought to AI. I actually listened to a presentation on AI in track and field specifically back in like December, and it didn't necessarily like raise the same kind of points that you just made, but I can see a ton of use for it in the kind of the way that you're saying, because I think like worst case scenario of what you just said is like you're going back and looking again at the data and looking at a guy for a second time that they might have picked out that you didn't see. And then you can say, okay, I think there's something to this, or no, I think I trust myself on this. Because again, the context, the computer doesn't know the context. So yeah, that's my one holdup, I would say, with AI in terms of like taking it for what it is all the time, is I have seen AI be wrong. And it is a very useful tool in my opinion, but it doesn't know what we know. It doesn't have the eyes to see what we see. For someone like us who's there on an everyday basis, like you're always with the guys, like what these guys are doing. But at the same time, like if you could have 2 more people as part of your sports science staff, you probably would. So this is kind of a way for you to have another person.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the big thing. It's like giving more bandwidth to obviously do all the things, but there may be like little things where you're like, all right, hey, like I trusted it enough and maybe have trained it enough, or like I may run it in 2 different AI systems, but it's like, go run a statistical analysis for me. Like I'm not trying to pull up SPSS like I'm back in research methods.
Seriously. I mean, come on. I never even understood it anyway.
That shit's beneficial.
I don't understand that software. It didn't make any sense to me.
Where it's like that, it's beneficial too. And it's like, we have some of it built into our system where we house our data, but it's like, also it's like when I want to go analyze something on a deeper level, it's like, can I do it? Yeah, it's going to take some time. But if I go and run it twice in 2 different AI models, whether I'm running it in chat and then I'm running it in Claude, de-identify data, just see if there's any sort of signal from a statistical point of view. Like, I think that's
are you
take away.
Are you able to like save specific parameters that you set in those?
Yeah. So you're able to like
save like a search filter almost kind of thing?
Like a search filter, and you can just like prompt the AI, be like, you can just like train it. Because obviously it's like, basically it's like an athlete. Like, all right, hey, you got a brand new athlete who's never touched a weight before, or say, and it has some, maybe it has all this base knowledge you can go out and get from the internet, but it's like, I don't want a bunch of generic glop. Like I basically prompt, hey, you're an AI assistant who's an assistant sports scientist. Here's what I need you to do. Mm-hmm. Here's what parameters, how I look at the data. You must follow these parameters. Don't make assumptions that's not in the data. And then obviously there's a bunch more prompting to it, but it's like training it to think like you, or think how you would think, but also having it have its own mind and also contradict what you think too, to make you even more critical, where it's like, maybe I am wrong in the bias that I have that I'm seeing. And it's like, all right, it's challenging me on that.
Yeah. What do you think, Aiden?
Yeah, myself, I'm more inclined to utilize AI if it helps create a higher quality product, or it frees up some time for you to provide value in other areas.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Like me currently right now, I'm trying to attract some online clients and hopefully scale that a little. Like if I can utilize AI in some way to help save me time in certain areas, like I think that's great. But if the quality of product and the quality of the creator and the curiosity is hindered by that, then I'm not a fan. And at the same time, it's like, I don't think AI should be, I don't like the term doing our job for us. But like if you're utilizing AI to analyze sprint gait or a certain pattern, are you challenging yourself to then understand the mechanics of said pattern, or you're relying on the opinion of an AI agent, right? And like, I'm not saying that it can't be beneficial. Kind of like you said, Mikey, like you have to cross-reference. Because at the same time, then you're going to get to the point where the AI sees something and you don't, or you see something and the AI don't, and you're going to start questioning yourself. And that's the last thing you want.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, you still have to be the one to sit there and like you have to make the ultimate decision.
Yep.
You can't just be there eating Cheetos, feet up on the desk. Like,
AI says that
AI's got it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what we're doing today.
So we're rolling with it. But again, like you said, like you're at the end of the day, you have to be the human that makes the decision, because you have the true legitimate context right in front of you in the environment you are in consistently. And obviously, like you have to just like abide to your principles. And then again, like AI may say one thing, but in your heart and your head, you may know that's not in the best interest or practical for the athlete. And again, athlete always comes first. So it's like, again, like you have to be that human to make the final decision.
Yeah, and it's like a fulfillment piece for me too. It's like, why did we go through all this school? Like, why do we get into this field? Part of it is because like I like having these challenges in front of me, these problems that need solving, and I like having to think through them. You know, like that's part of what makes me feel fulfilled in my job. And if you just utilize and rely on AI, you're going to lose that part of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think we just have to be able to admit that, like, yes, there's a role for it. It's not going away. It's going to continue to grow and expand. It's going to continue to become more accurate. So, like, we just have to accept that it's here to stay. And how can we use it? Like, how can we use it to be better at our jobs? Not resist it.
And even a lot of these tech companies now, they're putting like AI assistants in the software themselves, or like maybe like a AMS be like, all right, hey, we got an AI assistant in ours, or it's like another like programming tool. Like, all right, we're going to build, this is how we deploy our programs to the athletes. Like, all right, hey, we're building an AI assistant in here. It's like, I know another company right now that they just put out beta testing for AI, like an AI assistant within the system. So it's like, again, it's going to be there. And I think you have to have knowledge about it. And like I said before, I think you need to use it because it can be helpful, but don't abuse it where you're going to get lazy and not critically think.
I'm actually glad you brought it up. One, it's a conversation that we've never had on here, and I think it's important. But two, it's like when I think about AI myself, if you don't utilize it, you're going to fall behind, right? At some point, likely.
Yeah.
You might not fall behind in the aspect of like, you know what I mean, though? Like, say you're trying to scale a business or grow quickly. Like, there's probably going to be steps that you can use with AI that are going to be beneficial. But like, then you don't want to get to a point where you're relying on it. So it's just like I think it's like a tough middle ground. Because like if you see someone growing, or a corporation growing, an organization you feel like is ahead of you because they're utilizing AI, you're gonna like, of course, compare and feel more inclined to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But then like I never want to get to a point where the majority of my decisions are being made as a result of it. Because then like I'm gonna look back and be like, I feel like I didn't get the most out of myself. I don't know if that makes sense, but like
but like on the business side of things, especially like the model has to be sustainable.
Yeah.
So if you're building a business model that you can't continue to maintain as you grow, it's not a good business model.
Exactly.
For sure.
Coach, have you got anything else?
I'm good. No, I'm happy with that one.
Well, we got a question. Well, do you have any questions for us, Coach Mikey?
No, I mean, I'm ready to roll with whatever else you guys may have for questions.
We ask every guest this, and I'd actually really curious to see your answer to this. Do some self-reflection on like people that impacted you, whether it be experiences firsthand or things you've learned online or through different things. If you could tell us to invite 1 to 2 people on here that you think we would learn a lot from, like who would they be?
Well, you've already had one, because I will say this story and I'll just throw out both of them. I feel like I was very blessed when I entered Springfield and left Springfield to be able to be there with both fights. And it was awesome just to build relationships with them for the 5 years I was there, and even still have relationships with MK and Adam, where it's like my first semester at Springfield was also their first semester coming back. They were PhD students, and be able to, it's kind of like cool to see like them walk up the chain and then have them fall and always have them in my corner and just helping them and help getting back to Springfield and stuff. They'd be awesome to have on. You guys already had Adam.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that have helped me along the way. I mean, it's tough to name a few that what I would say to like come on and be a good guest, because there would be a lot of people that I could name and be like, all right, hey, boom, 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 boom. These people have helped me along the way and have
someone in this space, like in your space.
Sports. I think Joel Reinhardt would be a good guy to have on, with him just being director of football performance and doing a lot with sports science. Would be definitely a good guest to have on.
Excellent. Well,
he's got a unique role too, because he's one-man show.
For sure.
I want to thank you for coming on here, man. Especially Thursday night. I know you're busy. And hopefully we can kind of like recycle this and do this again at some point down the road.
Absolutely. Love to.
The goal of mine is like, can we have more of these conversations down the road when we're all at different points and still connect and touch on our experiences at that point. So I'm hoping we can do that. Good luck to you this season.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. And enjoy
that division. If you guys play Denver this year, I hope you lose. But other than that, all the best to you.
Take that back.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Appreciate you guys having me on. And again, it was an honor that you guys invited me on. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mikey.